Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Advancements in Forklift Safety, Putting Technology to Work to Prevent Forklift-Related Injuries. As many of you know, Amerisure is one of the nation's leading providers of commercial insurance. We specialize in managing risks for business in construction, manufacturing, and healthcare, and we're licensed to conduct business in all 50 states. We've been doing business in these states for over 100 years. There are nearly 700 Amerisure employees, with our headquarters located in Farmington Hills, Michigan, and 12 strategically located core service centers around the country. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box in your Zoom ribbon up above or below on your screen. You do have the option to submit your questions anonymously if you choose. I'll bring them up at the end of our presentation just to stick with time. Due to the number of attendees and to avoid any background interference, all attendees are muted and will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. Please be aware that this webinar is for general information only, and it's not intended to provide specific solutions for any potentially unsafe conditions. It should not be relied upon for legal advice. You're advised to consult with an attorney to address any particular circumstance you may have. Amerisure assumes no duty or obligation to any party in providing the information in today's webinar. Our presenters today are Kathleen Babylon and Jeremy Biggs. Kathleen has been a part of the Amerisure team since 2005, and she's currently based in our Phoenix Core Service Center. She has a bachelor's degree with a focus on math and biology, as well as her associates in risk management. She's also a qualified OSHA construction and general industry instructor. Jeremy's been with Amerisure since 2011 and is currently based in our Atlanta Core Service Center. Prior to working with Amerisure, Jeremy was a business unit safety manager for Cargill, and he has a bachelor's degree in occupational safety and health. He also has had his certified safety professional designation since 2007. Both Kathleen and Jeremy have a wealth of knowledge to share with you today on this topic. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to our experts. We hope you enjoy.
Thanks, and John Lee, appreciate the introduction. So as you can see from our webinar title, we're going to be paying some special attention to new technologies that are really improving forklift safety. But we think it's important to understand why the forklift-related injuries and accidents are occurring. So first, we're going to be discussing some interesting and surprising facts about forklift use in the general workplace. Second, we're going to discuss some claims that we've experienced as an insurance carrier. We're going to discuss some programmatic practices that need to be in place at your company. Next, then we're going to be looking at some those technologies, I promise, that will help improve your forklift safety program. And then finally, we're going to share some of the vendors who provide these technologies. So to start, we're going to do some interesting industry forklift facts. But first, we're going to take a little pop quiz. So, and John Lee, do you have some directions here?
Absolutely. So we're going to show a poll up on your screen here shortly. Please go ahead and choose the answer you think best fits the question.
All right, so you can see, in the workplace, what is the leading cause of forklift fatalities? Is it 1, being struck by a forklift? Is it 2, being in the forklift as it rolls over? Or is it 3, being hit by an object that falls off of a forklift? So we're going to give you a little bit here to make that answer.
All right, we're getting some good responses here. I'm going to give you all about another few seconds, and then we're going to go ahead and display the results, see what you think.
Looks like we have all the answers in place. Oh, no, got a few more folks coming in.
Still coming in. All right, we're going to go ahead and end the poll here, and then I'll go ahead and show you what we have. Here we go. What do you think, Kathleen?
Well, sadly, the correct answer is actually being in the forklift as it rolls over. Forklift rollovers are the #1 cause of forklift fatalities. And that might be the word that threw you. This is actual deaths from a forklift incident or accident. So that's the answer there. All right, so according to this website, Conger.com, forklift rollovers are the most common cause of lift fatalities in the workplace. And you can see the reason for these rollovers are largely due to operator error. This includes turning too quickly, overloading the forks, some abrupt movements, and then driving with an elevated load. Aside from fatalities, we also see many members of the public, or to be clear, walking employees, are struck by forklifts, leading to injury or even death. And this occurs when operators are tired or they're not paying attention. It happens when forklift operators don't provide any signals to indicate that they're close by, or simply when a load comes off and it goes loose and hits an employee walking around. Also, falling loads lead to frequently property damage as well as injury, and they're often caused by improper load placement, fast movement while carrying those loads, or just a damaged forklift. Now, here you're going to see a bunch of numbers. These are some really interesting statistical facts according to safety manual OSHA.com. Manufacturing and trades together account for 64% of all forklift fatalities. I'm going to say that again. Manufacturing and trades together account for 64% of forklift deaths. Not surprising, and based on the prior slide, a majority of those deaths were caused by the forklift rollover. That's at 42%, with caught in or crushed together making an additional 36%. But everything's leading up to it's forklift rollovers that are causing the fatalities. And here's some interesting fatal facts. ASAFE.com shows how dangerous it is not only operating a forklift, but simply working in those areas that have moving forklifts. There's an average of 87 deaths a year related to forklift operations. OSHA estimates between 35,000 and 62,000 injuries a year due to forklifts. In fact, you're 3 times more likely to be killed at work in the transportation and storage sector, where forklifts are readily used. And I want to be clear again, transportation and storage sectors are essentially describing an active warehouse or a manufacturing facility. Now, I've shown you some just industry-wide facts. I want to now get into data points specific to Amerisure policyholders. So Amerisure, we completed an analysis of all of our claims over 4 years here at Amerisure. We looked at liability claims, property damage claims, and workers' compensation claims. We saw 718 claims that directly involved forklifts. Of those, 504 of those claims were worker injuries. And the total cost of all of these claims was over $9.5 million, with work comp holding $8 million of that $9.5 million. And yeah, we're not citing rollover as a specific cause, but our classification internally states that struck by or injured by includes rollovers. So with that in mind, the Amerisure data directly reflects the industry data cited earlier. Then finally, we reviewed our internal accident investigations. That's the investigations after an incident occurs and we go out and kind of dig into it. It's really interesting to see some of the keyword trends related to forklift claims. Number one, in all of our accident investigations, the number one phrase seen was operator training. The next was struck pedestrian. And again, that implies an internal employee and not just some member of the public walking onto a job. You can go on to see unsecured materials, wet floors, and ran over foot among some of these other phrases. And lastly, in our forklift facts, so you see on the slide here a list of really common circumstances related to forklift use. Every one of these circumstances has led to an injury or property damage for our policyholders, every one of those. We've encountered so many injuries from employees simply getting off or on a forklift. We've seen serious injury from operators driving with the forks in a raised position, often injuring other employees. Driving too fast or too close to a leading edge, readily leading to injury or property damage. We have had a number of operators, this is an interesting one. We've had injuries to operators who they're loading a trailer at a dock. It's parked at a dock, it's connected to a truck. And the operators are going in and out of the back of that trailer. The truck wheels are not chalked. So often when these injuries occur, the driver takes off with the operator inside. And it's shocking how many injuries have occurred from operators falling out of the back of the trailer because the truck takes off. It's just unimaginable. So we've discussed industry fact, we've discussed things that we've seen at Amerisher. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to review some of the forklift claims we've seen here at our company. This is something that's for our policyholders that we've seen. I want you guys to understand every one of these incidents is preventable. And I promise we are going to get to the technology, so just hold tight. So in this, I'm going to get to this first incident, but I just want to make sure you understand, for the sake of this webinar, we're reviewing these incidents and responses from a high level. We're not going to dig seriously deep into root cause or specific responses. We would do that with our policyholder in a private setting, but for this, we're just kind of looking at it from a mile high level. So in incident one, a forklift was being operated in a warehouse. The operator did not see an acetylene tank nearby, and the forklift fork punctured the tank. This created an explosion, leading to property damage to our insureds, as well as others in this building complex. Amazingly, there were no injuries. However, property damages right now are at $35,000. The main cause was distracted operation and poor views while carrying a front load. And what was the company's response? Well, they conducted retraining for all of the operators about how to properly drive through the facility when carrying a larger load, and they're more sternly enforcing operator accountability. And the second incident you'll see here, a forklift operator was moving pallets in a manufacturing facility, pretty normal circumstances. The operator called another employee over to ask a question. And upon completion of the conversation, the operator took off and ran over the standing employee's foot. The injury led to the amputation of that employee's big toe, and to date is over $280,000. The cause. Well, the operator failed to safely operate the lift, and he put the lift into motion before verifying that his area was clear. The injured employee was wearing tennis shoes instead of the required steel-toe boots and was simply standing too close to the lift. The company's response was retraining and accountability, and the operator has to always be aware of the pathway prior to putting that lift into motion. And honestly, any employee working in a facility has to be aware of their proximity to a forklift, whether it's moving or standing still. Everyone has to be aware of their situation. Here in incident 3, we have 2 forklifts were operated in a warehouse. Operator 1 was driving around some boxes, honking his horn. Operator 2 was entering the area from the other side, but was silent. Operator 1 hit Operator 2's forklift. The impact was so hard that Operator 2 bounced in his seat and hit his head on the interior of the lift. The injured operator sustained a massive concussion that has had serious long-term effects on his cognitive skills. And right now, this is sitting over $500,000. The main cause is the injured employee, which is operator number 2, wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and he failed to warn others in the area of his lift position and pathway. The company's response, they address the heavy forklift traffic areas in that warehouse, ensuring that those areas are clear and well maintained, and that operators must be held accountable to comply with all safety practices. Okay, we got 2 more incidents here. This is number 4. A forklift operator in a production facility was moving a pallet. Again, pretty normal circumstances. He rode over an area where there was unseen standing water on the floor. The forklift started to slide. The operator jumped out, attempting to stop the forklift by hand. The employee's leg was crushed, and he's going to have permanent injury in that leg. At this time, the injury stands at $280,000. The major cause of this injury was, number 1, poor environmental conditions. And 2, the operator was able to jump out of the lift because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Clearly, we would note that any heavy forklift traffic area has to always be maintained and dry, and that operators must always be held accountable to comply with all safety regulations, including wearing a seatbelt and how to properly operate a lift. There we go. Thanks, Anjali. Incident 5, this is our last one. A forklift operator was carrying material from one area of the work site to another. It's really unclear. We have no idea why, but the employee chose to drive the lift over uneven ground in a parking lot rather than the designated forklift site route. While in the parking lot, the lift appeared to have rolled over and crushed the employee underneath. The employee was not wearing their seatbelt and did pass away from those crushing injuries. To date, the cost of this claim is $670,000. The company had a forklift safety program in place, but as stated before, employees have to always be held accountable every time to comply with every safety rule. And in a later section of this presentation that Jeremy will be presenting, we're going to be sharing some technologies that very well could have prevented this death and likely would have prevented all of the incidents we discussed earlier. All right, we're going to have another pop quiz. So, and John Lee's going to set this up again for us. So, what is the average weight of a typical warehouse forklift? This is one you're going to see every day, any day of the week. So we're going to get that up there, and John Lee.
All right, we're getting some answers flooding in.
Oh, we already have them up. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to see it.
We're going to have some results for you shortly. Okay. No problem.
So the options are 3,000 pounds, 6,500, and 9,000 pounds. So, and John Lee, tell me, because I'm not able to see the poll, if you wouldn't mind letting me know when it's over.
Absolutely, no worries.
Thank you.
I'm going to give everybody about another 10 seconds.
So, and John Lee, you're going to have to share the results with me because I can't see it.
Will do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here. And here are our results. Can you see the results?
I can. Okay.
All right,
so
perfect.
Thanks, Anjali. Looks like a majority of the folks picked 6,500 pounds. And that's a conservative guess and probably one I would have guessed before I did this research. The answer is the average weight of a forklift, one you would see in any normal warehouse, is 9,000 pounds. To compare, the weight of a normal 4-door sedan is only 4,100 pounds. That's the difference of almost 5,000 pounds. And that's just one reason why forklift safety has to be taken very seriously. So I am done with my part of this presentation, and I want to thank you for your attention. Jeremy, my very knowledgeable colleague, is going to be taking over next. So Jeremy, take it away.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. So I do get to talk to you today about the exciting part of the presentation with the technologies that are out there that are available to enhance your current forklift safety program. But before I get to that, I do want to quickly cover just some of the basics of a forklift safety program. So first, OSHA does require that anyone who's operating a forklift be trained and certified. And so there's two parts to that training. The first is formal education, and this can be classroom lecture, this can be interactive computer learning, or even videos. And then the second part of that training is hands-on training. And this can be a demonstration by the instructor, or it can even be practical exercises by the employee where they demonstrate use of the controls, etc. And then lastly, as part of your operator training, you have to do an evaluation. And that evaluation takes two forms. The first is a written test, just to verify that the people who went through the class retain the information. And then the second part of the evaluation is the hands-on evaluation. In many cases, this will be an obstacle course where the operator has to demonstrate the ability to safely operate the forklift and the controls. One thing to keep in mind, OSHA requires that you recertify and retrain your operators every 3 years. Now, if your operator is involved in some type of forklift accident, before they operate the forklift again, they would have to go through the recertification process and the retraining process. Another aspect of a basic forklift safety program is the inspection and maintenance. So one thing to keep in mind on the inspections, those are to be completed prior to use on any shift. So if you have multiple shifts, that means if you got first shift, second shift, third shift, and the forklift is used on each shift, prior to use on each shift, it needs to be inspected, and that inspection needs to be documented. Any deficiencies that are noted in that inspection must be corrected prior to the operator utilizing the forklift. And then secondly, with the maintenance, not only preventative maintenance and routine maintenance, but also any maintenance from any type of shutdown. You need to maintain a log on each specific forklift. And that way you have a history of all prior maintenance on that lift. In addition to that, maintenance needs to be conducted by a qualified technician. And in many cases, this is going to be an outside company that will come into your organization, maybe on a quarterly basis, for example, and perform maintenance on your forklifts. And next, it's vitally important that we have accountability. We've already discussed how dangerous these pieces of equipment can be. So you need to have some type of disciplinary program in place to ensure that your operators are abiding by the rules and guidelines that they've learned in their training. And then secondly, one of the things that I have personally seen be very successful is some type of observation program. I had an account that once a week they required their supervisors to go out and do a documented observation on one of their operators utilizing the forklift. And then using that to give feedback to the operator afterwards of what they were doing safe, and if they were doing anything that was unsafe, giving them that feedback. And that account saw a significant reduction in the forklift incidents that they were sustaining each year. Okay, so now to technology and some of the solutions that are out there that can better enhance your current forklift safety program. So before we discuss each technology in detail, there is a poll that I can't see the poll, but okay, there we go. So what forklift safety technology are you currently using? Are you using access control systems in your operations, LED warning lights, collision avoidance systems, or none of the above?
All right, looks like we're getting some answers starting to flood in, so I'll let you know, and we're going to show the results, Jeremy. And we're going to give another 10 seconds here.
So,
okay,
yeah,
thank you. I'm going to end the poll here and share it.
Actually,
Here we go.
Yeah, this is kind of exciting because I anticipated that there would be a lot more none. So it's very exciting to see that so many of you are accessing some of these technologies. I'm going to be discussing each of these technologies in detail, along with a couple other technologies as well. So first, forklift access control systems. These systems are great. They basically, one of the main functions is they ensure that only trained and authorized operators are accessing your forklifts. And not only that, in many of your locations, you may have multiple types of forklifts. Well, in order to operate a specific type of forklift, the operator needs training on that specific forklift. So with these systems, that you can ensure that an operator who's trained on one type of forklift doesn't jump on some other forklift that they've not been trained on and try to operate it. These systems work in one of two ways. One is after your operators have gone through the training and recertification process, they could get an operator badge. And basically when they are ready to operate the forklift, they would pull out their badge, scan the badge, and at that point, the forklift will allow them to operate it. Prior to that, it would not actually operate. And then another way for an access control system is access codes. So again, once your operator goes through the training, they receive an access code that is specific to them. They get on the forklift, they input their access code, and at that point, they can operate the forklift. Now, one of the things to really keep in mind with this system is why a disciplinary program is so important. You have to make sure and train your operators to not give out their access badge to other employees or to give out their access code as well, or that's the way that somebody else could bypass the system. Another form of access control system is a seatbelt immobilization device, and this can be installed on any forklift. These devices immobilize the engine or transmission until the operator connects the seatbelt. We've already discussed how hazardous it is for an operator to try to exit a forklift when it's in an unstable situation. In many cases, that's the natural reaction that an operator has. So this device will keep that operator inside the forklift, and that is actually the safest way, if there is a tip over, for the operator to be is inside the forklift. And then secondly, I wanted to point out that what you see there on the screen, that immobilization device is red. They come in multiple colors, and you can actually even get them like in neon colors. And this just ensures that your supervisors, when they're walking through the facility, they can quickly scan and see and make sure nobody's trying to bypass the system. And then just to kind of highlight some of the benefits of the access control system. So it enables your company to easily manage certification and recertification processes. So you can set up those badges. So that badge will actually expire on the same day that their certification expires. And so once it expires, the operator would have to go back to recertification in order to be able to use that badge and access that forklift. They also allow you to adjust parameters such as speed or acceleration. And this can be very important. Let's say you have newly trained operators. And so by doing this, you could actually lower the max speed for a newly trained operator, say for the first month, until that operator gains enough experience that you're more comfortable with them, going back to the regular speed. And then also, we did talk about the seatbelt immobilization device and how that can prevent crushing injuries by keeping the operators inside the vehicle. Next, we'll discuss LED warning lights. Now, these can be mounted on any existing forklift, and there's actually two types. There's the front and rear LED lights, and then there's also the side lights. Now, we recommend using these in conjunction with each other, but even if you're not going to do that, just using one set of these lights greatly enhances the safety of your forklift operation. Now, the front and rear lights, what they do is they shine a blue light or a red light about 5 feet in front of and behind the forklift. And that way, when it's moving, pedestrians and other forklifts know that a forklift is operating. In addition, you can actually know it's there around a blind corner. Now, we talked about the one incident where the two forklifts collided. If they had been equipped with these front and rear LED lights, most likely that incident would not have occurred. And then with the side LED lights, these lights actually serve two purposes. One, it keeps pedestrians away from the forklift. We have many instances. We even discussed one where somebody got their foot ran over, again, because of standing too close to the forklift. Forklifts actually rotate on their front axis, and that will cause the rear end of the forklift to swing around. And that creates a hazard in itself. So the other thing that these side LED lights do is they actually give the operator a visual on what their safety area is. And that way, when they're making those turns, they're not incidentally hitting I-beams or other equipment, or unfortunately, even a pedestrian. Now, here's just a couple of pictures. The first picture shows the forklift without the side LED lights. And you can see that the pedestrian or the other employee is standing right beside the forklift. If that operator was to make a left-hand turn, that forklift will swing around and unfortunately hit that employee. And then you can see in the second picture, the lights just naturally keep people away from the forklift, the employees standing away from the forklift. And then again, it visually gives that operator a visual on what their safety zone is for that forklift. Next, we're going to talk about traffic warning systems. There are several types of traffic warning systems that are currently on the market that use different types of motion sensors. And we're going to discuss three of those today. The first one is the forklift safety LED sign projector. So these are mounted overhead in high forklift traffic areas. And what they do is as a forklift approaches that area, it'll actually flash a sign on the floor. And so you can kind of imagine if you're working in that area and then all of a sudden a sign flashes on the floor telling there's forklift traffic near, that's going to get your attention. And then the second one is the forklift traffic light system for aisles and crosswalks. So if you think about how this system works when you're driving in a car and you come to an intersection, this works in much the same way. And we have a picture on the next slide that will show you how this system works. But basically, it gives a green light for a pedestrian or a forklift if they have the right of way, or it gives them a red light if they need to stop and somebody else has the right of way. And then the last system is the safety signal warning system. And that's actually the system that you see in the picture there. And what this does, it detects oncoming traffic and warns forklift drivers and pedestrians via signs or warning lights. Now, these signs can be placed anywhere, but you obviously want to put them where they're most visible. And if you look in the picture there, so you see a forklift in the aisle, and the pedestrian there has a stop sign telling them to stop and not move forward. Even the forklifts coming in the opposite direction, you can notice that they have a yield sign warning them that a forklift is operating in that area. And so here is another picture. The first one is the LED sign projector. That's just an example of the sign that would actually flash on the floor. And then the second one is the traffic light system. And you can see that the pedestrian, they currently have a green light telling them they have the right of way, and the actual forklift there has a red light telling them that they need to stop. So again, if you go back to the incident where we had the two forklifts collide around a blind corner, this system could have prevented that situation. Next, we'll talk about collision avoidance systems. And there's two types of collision avoidance systems. The first is a sensor system. So your forklifts are equipped with sensors that are going to warn drivers when two forklifts are in close proximity. And then they can also warn the forklift driver when another person is in close proximity, as long as that employee or visitor is wearing a sensor. So that's one thing to consider with this system. That might be a downfall is the fact that you have to ensure that your other employees every morning when they come in that they're going to put on their sensor. If they don't put on the sensor, then it's not going to warn the forklift driver. And that kind of takes us to the next system, which is the camera system. So with the camera systems, these are actually mounted onto the forklift, and they use artificial intelligence to detect people, vehicles, and even other objects. So the great thing about this system is it does not require sensors. And that's why it's even able to identify other objects like an I-beam, or say, for example, you've got two forklifts operating in the area and one forklift drops a pallet right now and leaves. When the next forklift comes through, they're going to get a warning that something's in the aisle. And then the other great thing about the camera system is it takes time-stamped photos. And so if the unfortunate incident happens where you have a forklift accident and you have to do an investigation, you'd be able to go back and see the photos exactly when the incident occurred, but you'd also be able to see exactly what the operator saw when the incident did occur. And so if you think about the camera system, we did talk about the one case where we pumped, the operator punctured an acetylene tank. So if that forklift had been equipped with this camera system, very possible that that incident might have been avoided. So this is an example of the camera system. So you can see right above that green light is the camera itself. Right now, the operator has a green light because although it is detecting objects that are out in front of it, they're far enough away, they're at a safe distance, so it's not giving the operator a warning. And so as the operator gets closer, that red light, that green light would turn to red, and then you could kind of think about how an operator that would catch their attention and cause them to maybe slow down. And this is just an example of the same camera system, and you kind of see the red light there. You see that out in front of the forklift, there's a person with a pallet jack, and so that operator now is getting a red light warning them there's something in front of them. Okay, the last two technologies that we're going to talk about, one is a system of active stability, and the other is active mass control. So with a system of active stability, this greatly reduces forklift overturns. So if you think about an operator operating a forklift, maybe with a pretty heavy load, and they driving too fast and going around the corner, what this system does, the forklift is equipped with sensors that actually take over 3,000 readings per second. And if it starts to sense any instability, a swing lock cylinder will stabilize the rear axle, preventing the forklift from actually tipping over. The second one is active mass control. And this is a product by Toyota that reduces the risk of front overturns due to excessive lifting of heavy load and height. So if you think about a mast, the mast is equipped with sensors that are going to detect load weight and also mast height. So as the operator lifts the load, it's going to detect that. And if it comes to an unstable situation, for example, if the operator starts to tilt the load too far forward, the system's going to take over and not allow the operator to do that. It basically shuts down that system and prevents the tip over. And if you think about, we talked earlier about 42% of forklift fatalities are the result of some type of tip over. So with these two systems combined, that would prevent most of those type of incidents. Okay, so now that's it for technologies, and we're going to pull up another poll question just to see what you learned today. So a forklift operator was delivering materials into a customer's warehouse. The operator's forks hit a structure column that was in a blind spot, significantly damaging the column. Cost to date is $64,000. In this incident, what tech would have worked to prevent this incident?
Okay, we're getting some answers coming in here. I'm curious to see what everyone thinks. We're going to give everybody about another 10 seconds, Jeremy, and then we're going to show the results. All right, here we go.
Okay, so the correct answer actually is the collision avoidance camera system. Now, the LED warning lights, you might have thought about that because it does give that safety zone, but for this specific question, we thought the most appropriate answer would be the collision avoidance camera system. Okay, so the next slide we're going to show you is just a list of the vendors. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are just some of the vendors that we highlighted that we discussed today. We actually took some of the pictures that we used from some of these vendors. So what we encourage you to do is think about your operation, think about which of these technologies would best fit that operation, and then do your own research to find out what vendor has the best product for your situation.
And just to let everybody know, if you're furiously trying to write these down, we're going to be sending out a link with the recording for this webinar. So you'll have access to these vendors here. And again, we don't endorse any of one of these specifically, but these are the folks that offer a lot of the services that Jeremy was talking about.
And then the last thing is just to always check with your forklift manufacturer for compatibility with any of these systems. Now, I will tell you that most of these systems is going to be compatible with whatever forklifts you have on site. And then before I turn it back over to John Lee, I would just like to close with, we put this presentation together for your benefit, and I hope it was well worth it for me. If just one account, if somebody out there identifies one of these technologies and says, I think this will work in our facility and possibly prevent a fatality or some type of serious forklift accident. So I really appreciate your time, and I'll turn it back over to John Lee.
Thank you so much to Jeremy and Kathleen. I really appreciate all the information that you all shared with us today and with our viewers. We're going to go ahead and take some time for questions now. I see that there's a few in the Q&A box. So just a reminder, if you haven't yet and you think of something while we're having this discussion, go ahead and type it in that Q&A box and we will get to it in that order. So let's go ahead and start. All right, we have our first question. Will this be available for reviewing after the webinar? Absolutely. We will send out a link as a follow-up probably within the next 48 hours. And you'll have full access to this as a Vimeo video. It's also available for reviewing if you're one of our policyholders or one of our agency partners on SureConnect under the Risk Management tab, Webinars. The next question is, can I receive a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes, same answer as just before. Thank you all so much. I'm so glad there's so much interest in continuing to look at some of the information we provided. We have a question from Mr. Josh Schultz here. If there is an incident or the 3 years is up on their certification and you have to recertify, do you have to do the classroom training and the hands-on training for recertification, or can you just do the hands-on training for recertification? Kathleen or Jeremy, would one of you like to take that one?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
My understanding is it's both. And I think even the next question asked about can you just reauthorize? Reauthorization is recertification is going back through the training.
Yeah.
So it's not just putting on paper, hey, we reauthorize this operator. It's putting them back through the entire training.
And the logic behind that is, okay, you can say, well, this person's been operating the forklift for 3 years. They know what they're doing. But, and Jeremy and John Lee and I, we can all speak to, just because somebody's been doing something for 3 years does not necessarily mean that they're doing it the right way. So
Absolutely.
So this is just a good way for you to check back in and make sure, hey, are they really retaining this? And nobody wants to have audit problems with OSHA. So yes, Jeremy and I agree on this one. You need to do it the big way. Go ahead, and John Lee.
Absolutely. And again, there's no shortcuts to safety, right? So making sure to do the retraining is always the best approach, especially when it comes to operation of hazardous machinery like forklifts. The next question is, how much do these devices cost? Just a ballpark figure.
I hate to even, I don't even want to start down that road because there's so many vendors and they're so different. Each of the products are so different and they have different costs. But one thing I will say in regards to that is always consider the cost of one of these accidents.
Yes.
You think about how much, not only the human damage that can be done from the standpoint of an injury or unfortunately even a fatality, but the cost of those claims. And one of the things that when we talked about the cost of the claims earlier, we were just talking about the cost of the claim. We weren't talking about downtime
Nope.
or how it impacted your organization.
Nope.
There's cost associated with that as well. So I can tell you that you know, they're affordable when you start to think about that overall cost of what one of these accidents could cost your company.
If something is speaking to you, John, and it's saying, you know what, maybe I need to give this, I would say move forward on it. Everyone who looks back and goes, man, I really wish I had done X, Y, or Z, living with that regret. If something is speaking to you, John, we encourage you to go do some research. It's just like any piece of technology. There's going to be the lower end and the higher end. And I suspect if you do the research, you're going to find something that speaks to you.
And that being said, there is such thing as investment in safety as well. It does take some financial investment in order to implement a lot of these proactive solutions, but in the end, it's going to be a lot less than the cost of a claim or a life in the event of a fatality. So just something to consider. Ms. Wanda says, thank you, Wanda, for joining us today. We really are glad you were here. And then we have not a question, but a tidbit of some wisdom from Ron. He says it's important to mention to use 3 points of contact when climbing in and out of the forklift. Similar to a ladder, many injuries can stem from not following this rule of thumb. And Ron, you are exactly right. And thank you for sharing that with us and with the group today. It's always important. We love hearing all of those things from our crowd. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looks like
thanks.
That's all of our questions for today. Again, we want to thank you for being here. We appreciate your attendance. Again, just to repeat, we're going to be sending out this webinar link to all of the attendees and registrants over in about 48 hours. So keep an eye out for that in your email. Webinar recordings also, again, are available in SureConnect portal if you have access to that. And we hope to see you in our December webinar. That webinar is going to be over virtual reality uses for safety training. So very exciting technology again.
And then John Lake, yes. How else can people get answers from AmeriShare?
So for additional questions or any answers that you need, please make sure to use this QR code here for WebRM, and you can go ahead and schedule a virtual meeting with one of our specialists or with one of our consultants if you have any questions. So again, thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.